Husband told me he needed to go camping to detox, but the FBI showed up instead. My husband told me he was going on a camping trip to clear his mind, but I found pictures of him in Maui with his mistress. And that was just the beginning. What if I told you that this wasn't just an affair, but a full-blown financial scheme? That the man I loved wasn't just a cheater, but a con artist? And what if I told you I didn't just catch him, I destroyed him? Stay with me, because by the time he landed back home, his entire life was in flames. And the best part? He never saw it coming. I stared at my phone, my fingers gripping the cold metal edges so tightly that my knuckles turned white. The text on my screen was simple, casual, the kind of message a loving husband would send to his wife while on a much-needed break from work. Caught a big one today. The mountains are beautiful. This break was exactly what I needed. Attached was a photo of a campfire beside a calm lake, the sky painted in hues of deep blue and orange as the sun set in the distance. It looked peaceful, serene, authentic, except it wasn't. Because at that exact moment, I was staring at another photo one that had been posted just 2 minutes earlier on Facebook. It showed my husband, Graham Parker, not by a lake, not in the mountains, but stretched out on a lounge chair at the Four Seasons Resort in Maui. A drink in his hand, his arm draped around a woman half his age. I felt something inside me snap, like a rope pulled too tight finally giving way. I should have felt pain, betrayal, maybe even heartbreak, but all I felt was a cold, controlled fury settling deep in my chest. The kind of fury that comes when you realize the person you trusted most has been feeding you lies with the confidence of a seasoned con artist. I took a slow breath and typed back, my fingers surprisingly steady. That's wonderful, honey. Enjoy the fresh air. I stared at the words before hitting send, almost laughing at the absurdity of it all. He thought he was getting away with this. He thought I was sitting at home, completely oblivious while he played out his little fantasy with his mistress. Oh, Graham. My name is Nora Parker, and for 10 years I believed I had a strong, unshakable marriage. We had built a life together, carved out a future, made sacrifices for each other. I had chosen him over a prestigious job offer in New York, convinced myself that love was more important than career opportunities, that he was worth it. But Graham, he had taken my loyalty, my trust, my years of unwavering support, and thrown them aside like an old suit that no longer fit. And for what? Some blonde in a bikini who didn't even have the common sense to keep their affair off social media? I was still processing it all when my office door flew open. Nora, you need to see this. I looked up to see Hannah Wells, my best friend and one of the top corporate litigators at our firm, standing there, breathless, her face flushed with urgency. She marched over to my desk, flipped her laptop around, and there it was, Savannah. Reed's Facebook page, a curated scrapbook of stolen moments with my husband. You have got to be kidding me, I muttered, scrolling through the nauseating display of affection. A romantic candlelit dinner, a private yacht cruise, a sunset walk on the beach, their shadows stretching across the sand like a perfect couple in a Hallmark movie. The captions made my stomach turn. Finally, with my soulmate, no more hiding. Living my best life with the man of my dreams. I actually let out a dry laugh. No more hiding? She really thought this was a fairy tale, didn't she? She had no idea that while she was busy documenting every stolen kiss, she was handing me all the ammunition I needed to burn their little fantasy to the ground. Oh my God, Nora. Hannah's voice was barely above a whisper as she scrolled further. This was last night. I leaned in, my eyes narrowing. It was a boomerang video, Savannah clinking glasses with Graham on what looked like a private terrace, the skyline of Maui glowing behind them. My mind flicked back to the conversation I'd had with him just before bed. Miss you, babe. Heading to sleep soon. It's freezing up here, but the stars are amazing. He had lied to my face, without hesitation, without an ounce of guilt. What are you going to do? Hannah asked, studying me carefully. I closed the laptop and exhaled slowly. Years of courtroom experience keeping my expression neutral. Nothing, I said calmly. Hannah blinked. Nothing? I reached for my pen, flipping open my legal pad. Graham thinks he's still in control, I said. He thinks I don't know. That gives me the upper hand. So, no, I'm not going to confront him. I tapped the pen against the paper, already forming a plan. I'm going to let him keep lying. I could feel Hannah's eyes on me as I scribbled down a list, my mind working a mile a minute. Freeze the accounts. Gather evidence. Contact his firm's HR. Change the locks. He thought he had orchestrated the perfect con, but he had underestimated me. He had forgotten that I was not some naive housewife who would crumble at the first sign of betrayal. I was a corporate attorney. I had spent my career dismantling men just like him, men who thought they were invincible, untouchable. Men who played with other people's lives like they were nothing more than pieces on a chessboard. Nora. Hannah hesitated. Are you sure about this? I looked at her and smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Oh, I'm sure, I said. By the time I'm done, Graham is going to wish he had never learned how to lie. And with that, I picked up my phone and typed another message to my dear, devoted husband. Miss you so much. Can't wait to hear all about your wilderness adventures. I hit send and leaned back in my chair, watching as 3 dots appeared on the screen. He was still lying. He still thought he had me fooled. Good. That meant he wouldn't see it coming. I sat in my office, my fingers drumming against my desk, the sound dull against the polished wood. The city skyline stretched beyond my window, bathed in the soft golden glow of late afternoon. Outside, life went on, people rushing to meetings, grabbing coffee, heading home to their families. Normalcy. Routine. The things I thought I had until just hours ago. But my life? My marriage? It had been an illusion, a carefully constructed lie built on deception, and I had been living in it, blissfully unaware, until now. Graham was in Maui with his mistress, drinking expensive champagne, probably laughing about how easy it was to fool me, and I was supposed to be the idiot sitting at home, none the wiser. That's what he thought. That's what he counted on. But what he didn't know, what he wouldn't see coming, was that I wasn't the kind of woman who broke down and cried when faced with betrayal. No, I was the kind of woman who calculated, who waited, who struck when the moment was right. And Graham? He had no idea the storm he had just unleashed. I took a deep breath, forcing my racing mind to slow. Hannah sat across from me, still scrolling through Savannah's Facebook page, her expression shifting between disbelief and disgust. Nora, she muttered, shaking her head. This is it's unbelievable. She turned her laptop so I could see another post. Savannah, posing on a private yacht, the ocean behind her a brilliant blue, Graham's Rolex visible on her wrist. The caption? When love is real, there's no need to hide. I almost laughed. Real? Love? She had no idea who she was dealing with. She was nothing more than another pawn in his game. Just another piece on the board he thought he controlled. But that was the thing about men like Graham. They always overestimated themselves. They thought they were the masterminds, the ones pulling the strings. And they never, ever saw it coming when a woman like me cut the strings right from under them. I picked up my phone and started flipping through my banking app, my eyes scanning transaction after transaction. First-class tickets. A $4,500 charge at a 5-star resort. A $12,000 jewelry purchase from a boutique in Beverly Hills. I felt my jaw tighten. He was using our money to finance his little getaway, our hard-earned savings. And the worst part? He hadn't even bothered to cover his tracks. He had gotten sloppy, careless, comfortable. Look at this, I said, turning my screen to Hannah. Her brows lifted as she took in the sheer arrogance of it all. He really charged all of this to your joint account? She asked, her voice low, incredulous. I nodded. And that's just the start. Look at this. I scrolled further, my pulse quickening. $20,000 transferred to a separate account, one I didn't recognize. Another $15,000 moved just a week ago. This isn't just affair money, I muttered. This is exit strategy money. Hannah's expression darkened. He's been planning this. I exhaled sharply, my mind racing. Of course he had. The new gym membership, the sudden interest in traveling for work, the extra hours at the office that never quite lined up. All the signs had been there, but I had ignored them, convinced myself that our marriage was stronger than suspicion. But Graham? He had been preparing for this for months, building a separate life, while still lying in bed next to me every night. And then, just as I was about to say something, my phone buzzed. A text from Graham. Miss you so much. Can't wait to come home and see you. My blood ran cold. Miss me? He had the audacity to say he missed me while he was probably lying in bed with her. The sheer arrogance of it made my fingers tighten around my phone. But then I smiled. Good. Keep lying. Keep pretending. I typed back. Miss you too, love. I've been thinking about you all day. Hannah stared at me like I had lost my mind. What the hell was that? I set my phone down carefully, my pulse finally slowing, my mind sharpening with a single focused thought. If I confront him now, what happens? I asked, meeting her gaze. Hannah hesitated. He denies it. Gaslights you. Twists everything. Maybe even tries to turn it on you. I nodded. Exactly. He talks his way out of it. He covers his tracks. He transfers whatever money is left and disappears before I can do anything about it. I leaned forward, my voice low, steady. But if I wait, if I let him think he's still in control, I can rip his entire world apart before he even realizes what's happening. Hannah exhaled, leaning back in her chair. Jesus, Nora, she murmured. Remind me never to get on your bad side. I let out a dry laugh, but the sound was empty. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about Graham anymore. It was about power, about taking back control of my own life. He thought he had won, that he had played me for a fool. But the truth was, I had just been letting him play. I picked up my pen and flipped open my legal pad, my mind already forming a plan. First, I'd freeze the accounts. Every single one. He'd wake up tomorrow and realize his cards had been declined, his access revoked. Then, I'd contact his firm's HR. Savannah might have been reckless enough to post everything online, but corporate policies? They didn't play games. Relationships between executives and subordinates were strictly forbidden, and I had no doubt that Graham's entire career was about to crumble. But that was just the beginning. Because while he had been planning to walk away and leave me with nothing, I was about to make sure he lost everything. His job, his mistress, his money, and by the time he figured out what was happening, there wouldn't be a single piece left of the life he had built behind my back. I smiled to myself as I wrote the final note on my list. Change the locks. He would never set foot in my home again. I picked up my phone, my fingers gliding effortlessly across the screen. Miss you so much, baby. Can't wait to hear all about your adventures. I hit send and watched as 3 dots appeared, signaling his response. He still thought I was in the dark. He still thought he was getting away with it. Perfect. That meant he never saw it coming. So there I was, sitting at my desk, staring at bank records that didn't add up, money disappearing into secret accounts, hidden transactions, thousands of dollars spent on someone who wasn't me. And then, a phone call. A woman who claimed she had the missing piece of the puzzle. What she told me next changed everything. But before I tell you, I have to ask, what do you think I found out? Comment 111 if you think he was stealing from his own company, Ortwoo 2 foot, if you think he had more mistresses than I knew about. Let's see who guesses right. I sat at my kitchen table, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the only sound in the otherwise silent house. The same house Graham and I had built together, filled with memories, shared laughter, whispered dreams of the future. Now those memories felt tainted, poisoned by every lie he had told, every moment he had stolen while I sat here believing in a marriage that had already crumbled behind my back. I exhaled slowly, my fingers tapping rhythmically against the wooden surface as I stared at my laptop screen. The banking app was still open, the numbers glaring back at me, undeniable proof of his betrayal. Thousands of dollars drained from our accounts, filtered into his little fantasy life with Savannah. I had spent the last hour meticulously going through each transaction, making notes, marking every questionable expense. Jewelry I had never received, dinners I had never attended, luxury hotels in cities where he was supposedly on business trips. But what sent a sharp jolt through my chest was the systematic pattern of withdrawals, all leading to an account I had never seen before. He wasn't just cheating, he was preparing to leave. A slow, cold rage settled deep in my bones. He had thought of everything except for one crucial detail. He had underestimated me. I reached for my phone and dialed my bank. The automated voice greeted me in that unnervingly cheerful tone, asking me to enter my account details. When I finally got a live person on the line, I kept my voice calm, professional. Hi, this is Nora Parker. The first need to place an immediate freeze on all joint accounts associated with my name. The representative hesitated. "Ma'am, do you suspect fraudulent activity?" Fraud. The word tasted bitter on my tongue. What Graham was doing wasn't just emotional betrayal, it was financial warfare. "Yes," I said smoothly, "and I'd like to transfer all remaining funds from my personal account into a separate private account under my sole name." She processed my request efficiently, unaware that she had just delivered the first strike. I could almost picture Graham waking up tomorrow, trying to buy another overpriced bottle of champagne for Savannah, only to have his card declined. Good. Let him wonder. Let him panic. I hung up and moved on to the next step. His job. I pulled up an email from months ago, the employee handbook from Sutton Financial, the firm where Graham had been climbing the corporate ladder for the last 8 years. He had once asked me to review some legal documents for him, and, like the good wife I was, I had saved everything. I scrolled until I found what I was looking for. Relationships between executives and subordinates are strictly prohibited and will result in immediate termination. A slow smile curled at the corner of my lips. Savannah had been reckless, broadcasting their affair like some love-struck teenager. She had handed me everything I needed to end him. I composed an email, attaching a carefully curated selection of her posts, photos of them together, captions dripping with affection, their little love story on full display. Subject: urgent ethics violation. Graham Parker 1 kept the message concise, professional. No emotion, no theatrics, just facts. Because that was all I needed. I hit send and sat back, imagining the HR director opening the email, scanning the evidence, realizing that one of their top financial advisors had just jeopardized the company's entire reputation over a woman who didn't even have the foresight to make her Facebook private. My phone buzzed. A text from Graham. "Hey babe, hope you're having a good night. Just got back from a long hike. Exhausted. Miss you." I almost laughed. A long hike? While he was sipping cocktails on an oceanfront terrace? Did he ever get tired of lying? I typed back. "That sounds amazing, love. Can't wait to hear all about it when you're back." Let him keep believing he had me fooled. The best part of any con was letting the mark think they were still in control. I stood and stretched, rolling my shoulders as I walked through the house. It felt different now, less like a home, more like a crime scene. His clothes still hung in the closet. His cologne lingered in the bathroom. I walked into the master bedroom and pulled open his dresser drawer, my fingers grazing over neatly folded shirts, expensive ties, cufflinks that probably cost more than Savannah's entire wardrobe. One by one, I started pulling things out, tossing them onto the bed in a growing pile. His favorite designer suits, his custom-made leather shoes, even the stupid monogrammed robe he never actually wore. Every trace of him gathered in one place. By tomorrow, it would all be gone. I grabbed my phone and made the next call. The locksmith. Yes, I need all the locks on my house changed. Urgently. The man on the other end hesitated. "How soon are we talking?" "Tomorrow morning." "That's gonna cost extra." That's fine. It would be worth every penny. When I hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the pile of Graham's belongings. This was the man I had once loved, the man I had chosen over my dream job, the man I had trusted with my future. And this? This was what he had done with that trust. I wasn't sad. I wasn't broken. I was done. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Graham. Love you so much. Can't wait to be home. Home. He still thought this was his home. That after everything, he could walk back through the door, kiss me on the cheek, and pretend none of this had ever happened. I picked up my phone, my fingers hovering over the screen, then typed my response. I love you too, baby. Safe travels. I hit send and placed my phone on the nightstand, then leaned back against the headboard, exhaling slowly. By the time he came home, his credit cards would be frozen, his job would be in jeopardy, his mistress would be in full meltdown mode, and he wouldn't even be able to unlock the front door. And that was only the beginning. I woke up the next morning to the sound of my phone buzzing. For a split second, I thought it was Graham, checking in like the devoted husband he pretended to be. But when I reached over and saw the caller ID, a slow smile spread across my lips. It was Susan Carter, the head of HR at Sutton Financial, Graham's firm. I cleared my throat, steadying my voice before I answered. Nora Parker speaking. Miss S. Parker, this is Susan Carter from Sutton Financial. I believe we need to have a conversation regarding your email from last night. I sat up straighter, already knowing exactly where this was going. Of course. How can I help? There was a pause on the other end of the line, the sound of papers shuffling. We take these matters very seriously, Susan said carefully. The evidence you provided is extensive and deeply concerning. I imagined her scrolling through the screenshots I had sent, seeing her employee, her senior financial advisor, wrapped around a woman who had no business being in his arms. I imagined the corporate panic setting in, the legal implications flashing through her mind. We will be conducting an internal investigation immediately, she continued. But I wanted to ask, how would you like to proceed? I leaned back against the headboard, my fingers drumming against my thigh. I want this handled professionally, I said smoothly. Discreetly, of course. But I assume Sutton Financial has a strict policy regarding executive-subordinate relationships? Susan exhaled sharply. We do. Then I'll leave it in your hands, I said, my voice calm but firm. I trust that the company will make the right decision. Another pause. Then, understood. We'll be in touch. I ended the call, staring at my reflection in the mirrored closet doors across the room. One step down. I got up and stretched, my muscles tight from the tension of the past 24 hours. The locksmith was due in an hour, and I had work to do before then. As I padded into the kitchen, my phone vibrated again. Another text from Graham. Good morning, beautiful. Thinking about you. Can't wait to come home. I actually laughed. Can't wait to come home? He had no idea that the locks on this house were about to change, that every shred of his existence here was already packed away in garbage bags, waiting for him like a parting gift. I picked up my coffee, taking a slow sip before typing back. Miss you too, baby. Hope you're having a great time. Let him believe it. Let him sip his overpriced cocktails, blissfully unaware that his world was coming apart, piece by piece. I set my mug down and walked to my home office, flipping open my laptop. I had one more task to handle before the day truly began. I pulled up our joint financial records, cross-referencing everything I had noted the night before. The secret account, the unapproved transfers, the $20,000 she had quietly funneled out over the past few months. That money? It wasn't his anymore. I dialed my attorney, Rachel Carter, a woman I had worked with on multiple cases over the years, someone I trusted. The moment she picked up, I cut straight to the point. I need to file for divorce. There was a brief silence before Rachel spoke. Nora, I had a feeling this call was coming. Yeah, I said, rubbing my temple. It's time. What's the situation? I took a breath. He's been having an affair. It's all over social media. But it's more than that. He's been hiding assets, moving money into a private account. I've already frozen our joint funds, but I need to make sure he can't touch another dime. Rachel let out a low whistle. Jesus. He's really that stupid? Oh, he's worse than stupid. He's arrogant. I heard her scribbling notes on the other end of the line. All right, I'll start drafting the paperwork. You want to serve him the moment he gets back? I smiled. Actually, I want him served while he's still in Maui, while he's still in bed with her. Rachel let out a sharp laugh. Damn, Nora, remind me never to cross you. Noted. We worked through the next steps, ensuring that every financial record would be secured, every legal loophole closed before Graham had the chance to react. By the time I hung up, my plan was airtight. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. The locksmith. Morning, he greeted, lifting his toolbox. You wanted everything changed? Yes, I said, stepping aside to let him in. Front door, back door, garage, every lock, and I need new keys made. He nodded, getting to work. I stood in the entryway, arms crossed, watching as the old locks were removed, replaced, erased. Just like Graham would be, my phone buzzed again. I glanced down. Just booked my flight home. Can't wait to see you. Love you, baby. The audacity. The sheer delusion. I typed back. My fingers steady. My heart calm. Love you too. Safe travels. By the time he got off that plane, he wouldn't have a home to return to. He wouldn't have a job to return to. And he sure as hell wouldn't have a wife waiting for him. The locksmith handed me a set of fresh keys. All done, ma'am. I took them, weighing them in my palm, feeling lighter than I had in years. Thank you, I said, closing the door behind him. And just like that, Graham Parker was locked out of my life forever. I sat on my couch, my laptop perched on my knees, the weight of what I was doing finally settling over me. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't second-guessing. It was something colder, something sharper, a realization. The man I had loved, the man I had built a life with, wasn't just a liar. He wasn't just a cheater. He was a calculated fraud, a man who had spent months weaving a web of deception right under my nose. And he had assumed I would never notice, that I would be just another clueless wife, too blind, too trusting to see the signs until it was too late. But I saw them now, the texts, the sudden changes in behavior, the missing money, the fabricated business trips, the expensive gym membership that had never once been used. I had ignored them all, convinced myself that marriages had rough patches, that work stress made people distant. I had excused away every red flag because I had wanted to believe in the man I married. But Graham had never deserved my faith. I exhaled slowly, my fingers hovering over my keyboard as I scrolled through the final set of financial records I had pulled up. The offshore account, $120,000 sitting under a name I didn't recognize, a company that didn't exist. This wasn't just a man preparing to leave his wife. This was embezzlement, and he had made a fatal mistake. He had married me a woman who had built her career dismantling financial fraud, a woman who knew exactly how to trace money that was never meant to be found. My phone buzzed beside me, the sound slicing through the quiet. I glanced down. Another text from Graham. Can't wait to see you. Just 2 more days, baby, 2 more days. That was all the time I needed to burn his world to the ground. I reached for my phone, but before I could respond, it rang again, an unknown number flashing across the screen. I hesitated for a moment before answering. Nora Parker. A woman's voice, hesitant but urgent. Is this Nora? Nora Parker? I frowned. Yes. Who is this? A pause. Then, my name is Mia Calloway. I used to be Savannah's roommate. I sat up straighter, my heart suddenly pounding. Savannah's roommate. The woman my husband was currently sleeping with. I gripped the phone tighter. Why are you calling me? Another pause. Then Mia exhaled shakily, like she wasn't sure if she should even be saying this. Because You don't know the whole story. I clenched my jaw. I know enough. No, she said quickly. You don't. I was silent, waiting, and then she dropped the bomb. This isn't the first time Graham and Savannah have done this. I went completely still. What? She sucked in a breath. They've pulled this before, with other men, other executives. I felt something cold and dangerous slide down my spine. What are you saying? I'm saying. She hesitated, then her voice dropped to a whisper. Savannah is a plant. She finds wealthy, married men, high-profile ones with power. She lures them in, gets them comfortable, gets them reckless, and then I swallowed hard. Then what? Then they bleed them dry. I stood up, pacing the room, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. You're telling me Graham is part of a scam? Yes, Mia whispered. They trap men, get them in compromising positions, steal from them, blackmail them if they have to, and then they move on to the next one. I pressed my free hand to my forehead, reeling. This wasn't just an affair. It wasn't just a midlife crisis. This was organized fraud. I sucked in a sharp breath. Why are you telling me this? Because Savannah's gone rogue, Mia said quickly. She's in love with Graham. She broke the rules. She started posting everything online. The social media posts, the public displays, the blatant carelessness. She wasn't supposed to expose him like that. She's ruining the game, Mia continued. And now Graham's pissed. He's scared, Nora. He's trying to get out. I felt a slow, dangerous smile creep across my lips. No, Graham, you don't get to run now. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Can you prove any of this? Mia hesitated, then, yes. I have texts, emails, bank records. They've been doing this for years. Years. How many women had they destroyed? How many families had they blown apart? And Graham had assumed he could do the same to me. I clenched my jaw. Send me everything. Okay, Mia said. But Nora? I exhaled sharply. Yeah? A long pause. Then, be careful. Graham doesn't take losing well. I hung up, the weight of what I had just learned settling in my bones. I had thought I was taking down a cheating husband, but now I was taking down a predator. And I was going to make damn sure he never did this again. I sat motionless, my phone still in my hand, Mia's words echoing in my mind like a detonated bomb that had yet to settle. This isn't the first time. They trap men, bleed them dry. Then they move on to the next one. My stomach twisted in a way that had nothing to do with heartbreak and everything to do with the sheer, calculated cruelty of it. I had been preparing to take Graham down for what he did to me. But now, it wasn't just about that. This was bigger. This was systematic deception. And the man I had once trusted was right in the middle of it. I took a breath, pushing down the white-hot rage crawling up my throat. This changed everything. If Mia was telling the truth, and I had a sick feeling in my gut, that she was then Graham wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a career con artist. A man who had been playing this game for years, using Savannah to lure men into financial ruin while he orchestrated the perfect escape plan. And now, because she had broken their pattern, because she had fallen in love and gotten sloppy, he was scrambling, trying to cover his tracks, trying to get out before the whole damn house of cards collapsed on top of him. Except I wasn't going to let him escape. Not this time. My laptop was still open, the offshore account numbers glowing on the screen. $120,000. That was what he had moved carefully, methodically, into an account under a fake business name. Not just stolen money, laundered money. Money that he had taken from our life together. Money that likely didn't even belong to him in the first place. My hands tightened into fists as I stared at the numbers. I had spent my career tracing financial fraud, exposing white-collar criminals who thought they were too smart to get caught. And Graham? He had been doing all of this while married to me. I grabbed my phone and dialed Rachel, my attorney, my pulse pounding with adrenaline. Nora? She answered, voice alert. What's going on? I need to escalate this. I said, my voice sharper than I had ever heard it. The divorce? The financial freeze? It's not enough. I need full legal action. He's committing fraud. Rachel paused. Okay, back up. What did you find? I inhaled deeply, my hands shaking as I forced myself to lay it all out. The bank transfers, the hidden assets, Mia's confession, the other victims. By the time I finished, Rachel let out a long, slow exhale. Holy shit. Yeah, I muttered. This is bigger than just a divorce case, Nora, she said, her tone shifting into something deadly serious. If what you're saying is true, this is criminal. You're talking about wire fraud, money laundering, possible blackmail. This is FBI-level shit. I closed my eyes, studying myself. Can we prove it? Rachel clicked her tongue. Depends. Do you have evidence beyond just the bank statements? Can Mia testify? Can we trace any other victims? I swallowed hard. I knew exactly where I needed to go next. Give me a few hours. I ended the call, staring down at my phone. There was only one person who could confirm the extent of this scheme. One person who had lived inside their twisted little operation, who knew exactly what they had done before Graham decided to cut her loose. Savannah. I clenched my jaw, then searched for her number. I had never saved it, but it was right there, buried in the records of my shared phone plan with Graham. He had been careless, never thinking he would have to hide her from me. I hit call. She picked up on the third ring, her voice groggy, like she had just woken up. Graham? My mouth curled into something that wasn't a smile. Not quite. There was a pause. Then, sharper. Who is this? You know exactly who this is, I said, my voice calm, controlled. And I know exactly who you are, Savannah. I heard the way her breath hitched. She wasn't stupid. She knew this was bad. I don't know what you think you know, she started, her voice turning defensive. I cut her off. I know you and Graham have done this before, I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. I know you target men. I know you steal from them. I know you set them up. And I know Graham is planning to throw you under the bus. Silence. For a moment, I thought she had hung up. Then, barely above a whisper, that son of a bitch. I exhaled slowly. So, it's true. She let out a bitter laugh. You have no idea. I glanced at my laptop, at the bank accounts, at the email I had already drafted to the FBI Financial Crimes Division. Tell me everything, I said, and she did. She told me about the last 3 executives they had scammed men with more money than sense, men who had fallen for the same trap. She told me about the blackmail, about the payoffs, about the whispered threats when things got messy. She told me about the money trails, the hidden accounts, the offshore businesses Graham had set up to make the money disappear. And then she told me about Mason Carter. Who the hell is Mason Carter? I asked, my stomach tightening at the way she had said his name like he was a ghost still haunting her. He was the first, I think, Savannah whispered. Or maybe just the first to push back. He figured out what we were doing, tried to go after Graham legally. I gripped my phone tighter. What happened to him? Savannah hesitated. Then he's gone. I went still. Gone? I don't know what happened, she said quickly. I swear. But one day, he was there, talking about pressing charges, about exposing everything. The next, disappeared. No social media. No business activity. Just gone. A chill slithered down my spine. Graham wouldn't kill someone. Would he? Would he? I sucked in a breath. I'm sending you something, Savannah said suddenly. Something you can use. Something to take him down before he does the same to you. My laptop dinged a new email. I clicked on it. My breath caught in my throat. It was Graham's entire operation. Names. Numbers, transactions, proof, cold, hard, proof. I looked at it for a long moment, my mind whirling, my heart pounding. And then I did what I had been waiting to do since this nightmare began. I picked up my phone, and I called the FBI. I stood outside the federal building, my heart pounding like a war drum inside my chest. The cold Denver air bit at my skin, but I barely felt it. The weight of everything, the months of lies, the betrayals, the intricate web of deception that Graham had spun settled on my shoulders, pressing down like a lead cloak. But I wasn't here to drown under that weight. I was here to end it. I exhaled sharply, clutching my phone in one hand, the other tightening around the folder of documents tucked beneath my arm. Inside that folder was everything: bank statements, transaction logs, screenshots of emails, records of offshore accounts, and the final nail in Graham's coffin, the files Savannah had sent me, detailing their entire operation. It was all there, undeniable, irrefutable proof that Graham and Savannah had been running a carefully crafted scam for years, targeting wealthy executives, blackmailing them, stealing from them, and then moving on to the next. And now, they had nowhere left to run. I squared my shoulders and stepped inside, walking through the metal detectors and past the uniformed security guards. The tension in the air was palpable. The atmosphere sterile, clinical, just like the courtrooms I had spent my career in. But this time, I wasn't here as an attorney. I was here as a witness. A woman in a sharp navy suit greeted me at the front desk, her expression unreadable. "Miss S. Parker?" The first nodded. "Agent Phillips is expecting you. Follow me." I walked behind her, my heels clicking against the polished floor, my fingers tightening around the folder. Every step I took felt heavier than the last, but I forced myself forward. I had spent years unraveling cases, exposing corporate fraud, tearing apart financial lies. But this was personal. We entered a glass-walled conference room where a woman in her 40s sat waiting Agent Phillips. According to the plaque on the table, she had sharp eyes, the kind that saw right through bullshit, and a no-nonsense air about her that told me she had dealt with people like Graham before. Good. That made two of us. "Mrs. Parker," she greeted, gesturing for me to sit. "I appreciate you coming in." I slid into the chair across from her, placing the folder on the table. "I assume you've had time to review the files I sent?" She opened the folder, flipping through the pages, her eyes scanning the documents with meticulous precision. "Yes," she said slowly, tapping a manicured nail against one of the statements. "It's extensive and damning. You do realize what you've given us, don't you?" I met her gaze, my voice steady. Enough to destroy him. Her lips quirked slightly, the barest hint of approval. "That's one way to put it." She closed the folder and leaned forward. "Miss S. Parker, based on the evidence you've provided, we're looking at multiple federal offenses: wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, possible conspiracy to commit fraud. This isn't just an affair gone wrong. This is a full-scale criminal enterprise. I already knew that, but hearing it out loud sent a thrill through me. "So what happens now?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "We proceed carefully," she said, lacing her fingers together. "We need to confirm Savannah's statement. You said she's willing to cooperate?" I nodded. "She knows Graham is going to pin everything on her. She's terrified." Agent Phillips smirked. "Good. That means she'll talk." She flipped to another page. "And this account," she tapped at one of the offshore banking statements. "This is where he's been hiding the majority of the stolen money?" "Yes." "Can you prove that these funds were obtained illegally?" I met her gaze, a slow smile forming. "I specialize in proving financial crimes, Agent Phillips. If I didn't have proof, I wouldn't be here." She let out a short chuckle. "Fair enough." There was a beat of silence. Then she sat back, exhaling. "All right, Miss S. Parker. Here's what happens next. We open a full investigation. We trace the money, track every transaction, every false business deal. We need to make sure this case is airtight before we make a move." I clenched my jaw. "How long will that take?" "A week. Maybe less. We'll move fast." I exhaled, gripping the edge of the table. "And Graham?" A shadow of amusement crossed her face. "Oh, don't worry. When we move, we'll make sure he never sees it coming." Good. That was exactly what I wanted. I left the building feeling lighter than I had in days. The air was crisper, cleaner. I had done what I needed to do. Now, it was just a waiting game. I climbed into my car, gripping the steering wheel as I let everything settle. This was real. The ball was rolling. And soon, Graham was going to realize that the very woman he had underestimated was the one who had set his entire world on fire. My phone buzzed. I glanced down. Graham, hey baby. Just finished dinner. Thinking about you. Can't wait to be home. I let out a slow breath, then typed back. I can't wait either, love. By the time he landed, there would be nothing left for him to come home to. No job, no money, no way out. And he wouldn't even see it coming. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the glowing screen of my phone. Graham's message was still sitting there, unread, a lie wrapped in a neat little bow. Hey baby, just finished dinner, thinking about you, can't wait to be home, home. The word felt hollow now, meaningless coming from him, the man who had spent months plotting his escape, draining our accounts, orchestrating a life behind my back, now texting me like a loving husband, counting the days until he could see his wife again. If he only knew. I let out a slow breath, my pulse steady, my resolve unshaken. The plan was in motion. Agent Phillips and her team were working fast, building their case, tracing every transaction, pulling financial records that Graham probably thought were buried too deep to be found. I had done my part, handed them everything on a silver platter. Now it was just a waiting game. And Graham? His time was running out. I pulled into my driveway, my headlights illuminating the neat suburban house that, for the last 10 years, had been a home. Now it was just a structure, 4 walls that had once held love, trust, a future. But that future had been a lie, just like the man who had stood beside me, promising forever with fingers crossed behind his back. I stepped inside, locking the door behind me, the new keys cool in my palm. He didn't know about the locks. He didn't know about anything. That was the beauty of it. He still thought he had control. Still thought he was going to walk through that door, flash his signature grin, wrap his arms around me, and spin another beautiful lie. But there wouldn't be a homecoming. There would only be consequences. I poured myself a glass of wine, the rich red liquid swirling in the glass as I sat down at the dining table. I should have been exhausted, drained from the weight of it all, but instead I felt sharp, more alive than I had in years. There was something almost poetic about it, how the man who had spent his life manipulating, lying, stealing, was about to have the ground ripped out from beneath him. And the best part? I had done it without him even realizing it. My phone buzzed again. Another message. This time, from Hannah, it's happening. 2 words. That was all it took for my heartbeat to quicken, for my stomach to tighten. I immediately called her. She picked up on the first ring. It's all over the firm, she said, her voice tinged with satisfaction. HR sent out a notice this evening. Graham has been terminated, effective immediately. I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly, letting the words sink in. Terminated, fired, unemployable. Without his high-powered job, without the connections he had spent years building, he was nothing. What about the investigation? I asked. Internal audits in full swing, she said. They're finding things, Nora. Bad things. Expense reports that don't add up. Clients he said he met with who are denying they ever spoke to him. And get this. She hesitated, a small laugh in her voice. Savannah's losing it. She went to HR demanding to see him. Started yelling about how it was a setup, how he promised her something. I smirked. Did they call security? Oh, absolutely. She was escorted out. It was beautiful. I let out a short laugh, swirling my wine. The perfect mistress reduced to a screaming, humiliated wreck in the very office where she had once strutted around like she belonged there. It was poetic justice. And Graham? He doesn't know yet. My smirk widened. He was still sitting in paradise, thinking he had the world at his feet, completely unaware that the empire he had built on lies was already crumbling beneath him. I finished my wine, staring out the window at the darkened sky. He'll find out soon. And he did. The next morning, at exactly 8:42 am, my phone rang. Graham. I let it ring twice before answering, my voice smooth, unbothered. Hey, babe. There was a moment of silence, the kind of silence that comes when someone has just had the ground yanked out from under them. What the hell is going on? His voice was sharp, barely controlled. Panicked. I bit back a smile. What do you mean? Don't do that, Nora, he snapped. I just tried to use my corporate card. Declined. I called the office, my email's been locked, my account's frozen. And then I get a call from HR telling me I've been let go. What the fuck is happening? I leaned against the counter, keeping my voice light. Oh, Graham. You should know better than anyone. Actions have consequences. He inhaled sharply. You. This is you. Of course it's me, I said, my tone almost bored. Who else would it be? You don't understand, he said, his voice lowering, like he still thought he could reason with me. This is bigger than just us. You have no idea what you've done, I smiled. Oh, I know exactly what I've done. There was panic in his breathing now. He was scrambling, trying to find a way out. But there was no exit, no escape. You're going to regret this, he said finally, his voice pure venom. I laughed, an actual laugh, because the irony was too rich. Graham, sweetheart, you never should have underestimated me. I ended the call. And just like that, the last string holding his life together snapped. I stood in my kitchen, the early morning light filtering through the windows, casting a golden hue over everything. My coffee sat untouched on the counter, growing cold, but I barely noticed. My phone was still in my hand, my last conversation with Graham replaying in my mind, each word laced with his desperation, his rage, his disbelief. He had never expected this, never thought I was capable of outplaying him, and that, more than anything, was his greatest mistake. I set my phone down and exhaled slowly, savoring the silence. It was over. The man who had spent years lying, stealing, and manipulating had finally run out of moves. And the best part? He had no one to blame but himself. My phone buzzed, breaking the quiet. I glanced down. A text from Agent Phillips. He's in custody. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. It was done. Graham had barely made it past customs before the authorities had him. The second he stepped off the plane, they had been waiting for him, agents in dark suits closing in as he looked around in confusion, realizing that whatever smooth-talking excuse he had prepared wasn't going to save him this time. They had taken him into custody on federal charges: wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to commit fraud. I had spent years watching criminals try to weasel their way out of trouble, using every trick in the book to manipulate the system. But Graham? He wasn't getting out of this one. I sipped my now cold coffee, the bitterness grounding me as I stared out the window. The irony wasn't lost on me. He had spent months preparing to leave me, thinking he could walk away with everything, leaving me with nothing. But now, I was the one who had walked away, and he was the one who had lost everything. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Rachel. I answered. Morning. Her voice was sharp, laced with satisfaction. Morning? Nora, do you realize what just happened? I smirked. I have an idea. Graham's facing 15 years at minimum, she said. That's without additional charges if more victims come forward. Good. Let him rot. And Savannah? I asked, curiosity flickering. She took the deal, Rachel said. Full immunity in exchange for turning over all evidence. She gave them everything: emails, bank records, even a list of past victims. I snorted. Of course she did. The moment she realized Graham was willing to sacrifice her, she had turned on him without a second thought. Typical, I muttered. He trained her well. Rachel laughed. Not well enough. He never thought she'd choose survival over him. And that was the thing about Graham: he never planned for betrayal. Never accounted for the moment when the people he used finally fought back. I leaned against the counter, my mind drifting to the past few weeks. how everything had unraveled so perfectly. It was almost too easy. "What happens next?" I asked. "For Graham?" Rachel exhaled. "Trial, conviction, prison. The feds aren't playing around. He's made too many enemies." "And for me?" I glanced around my house, the space that had once felt hollow, haunted by the ghost of a marriage that had never been real. But now, it felt lighter, freer. I wasn't the woman Graham had expected me to be. I wasn't weak, I wasn't helpless, and I sure as hell wasn't going to be the victim of his story. I had taken back my power, my life. And for the first time in years, the future was mine to decide. Rachel cleared her throat. "Oh, and one more thing, you might want to check the news." I frowned. "Why?" "Because the media just got wind of the case. And guess whose name is making headlines?" I pulled up my phone, tapping open the news. And there it was. The Parker scandal, high-profile financial executive, charged in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. I stared at the screen, reading the article, the details painting Graham for exactly what he was: a criminal, a con artist, a man who had spent years deceiving everyone around him. And now, his legacy was nothing more than a cautionary tale. Rachel was still talking, but I barely heard her. The sound of my own heartbeat was too loud, thrumming with a strange, unfamiliar feeling. Satisfaction, relief, freedom. I ended the call, setting my phone down as I let it all sink in. I had won, not just against Graham, but against the version of myself that had once ignored the signs, that had let love blind her to the truth. I was done making excuses for the man who had spent his life taking. Now it was time for me to start living. And as I stood there, staring out at the bright Denver morning, one thing was clear. Graham Parker was nothing more than a name in my past. And my future? It was going to be better than he ever could have imagined. Graham thought he could cheat on me, steal from me, and walk away untouched. Instead, he lost everything: his job, his money, his freedom. And me? I walked away stronger, smarter, and in control. But let me ask you, if you found out your partner was secretly stealing, lying, and planning to leave you, what would you do? Would you confront them immediately? Or would you play the long game and take them down piece by piece? Tell me in the comments, because trust me, sometimes revenge is best served legal. Trust is a powerful thing until it's weaponized against you. I learned the hard way that love should never blind you to the truth. If something feels off, don't ignore it. Protect your finances. Know where your money is going. Watch for red flag secrecy, sudden withdrawals, unexplained expenses, and never underestimate your own power. When someone betrays you, don't just walk away, take back control. Hold them accountable. In America, we value justice. And justice isn't just about punishment, it's about reclaiming your life. Because in the end, the best revenge isn't destruction, it's thriving.